I'm hearing, I'm hearing we know, we've learned, we've done, right? I'm hearing all of these things that, and I know that this is some of our journey too as organizers, and part of why we kicked off this program is that the last couple of years have been immense immersion experiences in what is better. This is an experiment though, right? So, what is it that you're not confident about yet?
We're in search of new rules for work, evidence-based practices fit for a hybrid world. This year, we're hosting a multi-month interdisciplinary research project looking for the best ways of unleashing team creativity. Join me, David Mastronardi, and my New Rules for Work co-producer, Elise Keith, as we explore the minds and the work of the people shaping not just our project, but the new rules for work. This project is made possible through the generous contributions of many people who are volunteering their time and through the support of our partners. To learn more about the project, buy tickets for January Symposium, register your team for the experiment, or partner with us, check out newrulesforwork.com. If you want to get in touch directly, email info@newrulesforwork.com.
Today, we are talking with Dan Levy. Dan is the founder and principal of More Space for Light, where he's a strategist, a creative, a skilled facilitator, and also an educator, a global speaker, a tech investor, a startup founder. He's bringing so many hats to the table, and we are thrilled to have him as an advisor on our big project and experiment. Thank you for talking with us, Dan, and thank you for agreeing to be on this panel.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are.
Morning, Dan. Speaking of, where are you calling from?
Calling from Adelaide, Australia. So it's our summer at the moment.
What do you do in Adelaide?
We use the tools of human-centered design thinking, futuring to help organizations figure out new futures, whether it's related to vision, whether it's related to product or service experience, or it's how to engage and understand their stakeholders and customers. And the way we do that is either through our design of our workshop programs to be able to solve a problem, to be able to train people, to be able to bring them together, to innovation processes, to be able to pop that into the organization so they can start merging the gap between ideation, experimentation, feedback, and into business as usual. So we kind of move people in the right direction so they can all talk and collaborate.
And so I'm assuming how you do this has changed in the last 2.5 years.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you saw it in the news, the global pandemic. I shouldn't laugh because it's been awful. We've had to adapt, and as many people have, and be resilient to change as well.
So talk about that, because you are seeing it through a different lens, from a different perspective, as a consultant, right? So you're seeing it across different customers, different customer types, different industries. What are some of maybe the unique things that you're seeing, but also some of the things that have shifted for everybody?
So initially, what we saw was, because we were operating in a very uncertain climate, people went on defense and they burnt anything that wasn't going to get them through to B. So it was almost like just throwing all the luggage overboard, and things like innovation and the types of conversations that we hold it's not even worth having that conversation. However, that would be at a micro level in terms of what's going on in the business. But you look at a macro level at how people come together, how they have to communicate, collaborate, and all the rest of that had to continue. So organizations had to shift their thinking in regards to, how do we adapt to this environment? How do we engage with our people and really get a sense of community? For example, leaders actually had to lead. They couldn't just manage anymore, go through like the more technical and functional aspects of leadership, of making sure people show up, and that they had to ensure that people were able to connect mentally as well as socially. And they had to continue to progress projects because the machine doesn't stop just because people can't leave the house. So what we found was that, well, we had to do the same because we still had to connect. We still have to go out and talk to clients, potential people that will work with us and collaborate with us. So we totally embraced remote from day one. We kind of had no choice. It was a forcing function for us, and started to work out how best to go about doing that, how best to engage with people.
When you look back on that, what were some of the things that you were doing at the very beginning, and what's after 2 years and change now, what's shaken out? What did you get right from the very beginning? What are some of the things that you changed based on either its effectiveness or the response that you were getting?
So something we did, we were running a group called The Future of Now, and we were using it to connect with our community interstate. So we were doing a lot of travel to Sydney, to Melbourne, and immediately, because flights were shut down, we decided to just give it a go and switch over to remote with The Future of Now. During the pandemic, we saw it. We ran that. Initially, it was fortnightly, then it was monthly, and there was a couple of reasons why we ran it. First up, we needed to learn remote quickly. Mentally as well, we needed to build a network and a community because it's very isolating, especially over here in Australia. There's a saturation of practitioners and consultants overseas. That's where it's hugely influenced us, like the work of game storming and lucid meetings. So it's a massive North Star for us. We get a lot of influence from people like yourselves. So it was like to learn the tools. Part of More Space's ethos is to be able to help people understand and learn new ways of thinking, not be like the black magic. We want to hold on to it. So this was a great opportunity to provide a free service and build a community that reflect the principles of that. New opportunities have opened up. We've realized that our market, I've always been quite bullish about moving out of the time zone of the Asia Pacific, but now we're working with clients in the US, in Europe. We're getting great collaboration opportunities like the New Rules for Work initiative. And all of these things wouldn't have happened because we were all forced into this world of remote. It made collaboration, and it made that idea of connection with other people like ourselves in that facilitation and consultancy community. And I'm sure many other communities experience the same thing, so much stronger and richer.
When you say learn remote, Dan, can you be a little, because I'm sure there's some standards that people can identify with, but I'm also certain that there's some nuance in what you've done that would be helpful for others to hear.
Okay, so I mean, I find it very frustrating that people consider remote a blocker, and I think that's very much old world thinking. We know through experience that it's actually an enabler, and it's a mindset thing. The tech should not be an interruption to the conversation and to the connection. It provides a platform, a leveling playing field for everybody. I mean, you look at the acceleration of tools over the last 24 months, things like Butter, things like even Teams, whatever you think of Teams, and we all throw rocks at Teams. Is come on so much. Zoom, we're on Zoom today, Google Meet, like all of these plethora of systems, and then you got things like Gather and Circle have just exploded out of it. There is a tool for everything. However, if you, just like with anything, if you plan an engagement, an interaction, a conversation, and use the platform as the forcing function, you're never going to get the richness of the conversation. So the way we build our conversations is all around objectives. What are we trying to get done? And then choosing the right tech stack to help enable that. It should be enablers. They should not be interruptions and distractions. And what we've found in organizations that it's been a little bit back to front. And what we've also noticed in organizations is that Zoom has become the worst TV channel, or Teams has become the worst daytime TV channel ever, where people are just switching from face to face to face to face with no time to context switch. So we've been building up good practice, good behaviors, and we've been helping organizations practice those kind of good behaviors. And I'll give you a really simple example of something that we learned off of someone else. We're running a retro next week with a company, and we booked it 7 minutes past the hour. Now, the reason we did that was because people need time to pee or have a cup of tea, pee or tea. They have that option. There's two different modes of people. There's the people that will be like, well, I just want to hang around for 5 minutes and just kind of connect and engage and be in the environment, or stalk. And then there's going to be the people that are like, cool, I've got 7 minutes. I can bang out all those emails. It's just about people, figuring about people and how you can get people to show up as the best possible self.
What's been some of the bad responses?
Well, people still are surfing the internet when they're online. I love the mute. I love the mute thing. I laugh now when people are on mute. I do it occasionally. It's like I want it on a t-shirt. You're on mute. That seems to be the slogan for 2020. Something that was big for me that I've learned as a facilitator that I wouldn't have realized is the whole cultural aspect of facilitation and facilitating with teams from different countries, for example, Asia. Often, so I like the philosophy of the More Space workshop to be like a double dip experience. And when I say double dip experience, I mean people can dip their chip twice in the dip, because we're all friends here and we're all going to muck in and we're all going to get dirty. And that's the only way we can show that trust and vulnerability. However, not everybody subscribes to that. And that also builds tension with that philosophy, because we like to meet people where they're at. So we believe if we go that extra inch, allow them to double dip, they'll be cool with that. But there's some cultures like in Asia where you asking them for their ideas or putting them on the spotlight is a really uncomfortable thing for them and is not really accepted. And when you add the layer of design thinking and the way we collaborate in our workshops, and you can see the way I'm bouncing around on camera, it's very hard to kind of read that. So we're learning things like that. So I think that's something I've had to bring with me and show up with into the meetings, but very much be mindful. But something I don't care, something that grates me to hell and back is the fact when people don't turn on their cameras, because there's nothing worse than conducting a workshop to empty screens. In fact, I've got like a little smiley face I put underneath my camera so I can just talk to that. So, don't feel like I'm on my own.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm curious about that. The camera on. Are there other ways to judge engagement besides the camera on?
You use complementary tools like collaboration boards. You've got chat functions. You've got it's more about contribution. How do you get people to contribute? Because once they contribute and add, they're invested. So with our workshops, we try and run some sort of check-in or icebreaker or something real low stakes, something really easy to make people feel comfortable and confident in the environment. Just like what we'd do if we were running an in-person workshop. We need people to also take risks. But we know, because we do this so often, that our propensity for risk taking is so much bigger than somebody that's going to like I don't know, tell you their nickname when they were 7 years old or what their favorite brand of cereal is. So you have to really be mindful of that.
I'm hearing we know, we've learned, we've done, right? I'm hearing all of these things that, and I know that this is some of our journey too as organizers, and part of why we kicked off this program is that the last couple of years have been immense immersion experiences in what is better. This is an experiment though, right? So what is it that you're not confident about yet? What is it that we have left to learn? And what is it that you suspect, maybe might be better back in the room? I mean, obviously you can't turn your camera off when you're in a workshop in person.
You can't. The equivalent of that is what I like to call the 45-degree head tilt. I go down to the mobile phone. It's the equivalent, and they do it. The sods, they do. They look down, and it doesn't matter the agreements or putting their mobiles in the bag or whatever. So the question is, what are we still learning? What are we unsure of? What are we uncertain of? Is that
yeah, and where are you ready to be surprised or proven wrong?
Something that we've started to think of when we map out an engagement are two axes of time and space. And as a facilitator or as an organization, going back to that idea of technology being an enabler, not a blocker or a constraint, we should be thinking about how we engage across those axes. And this is the big experiment for me at the moment. And this is what I'm bringing and presenting to the group to learn and gather information with them and just kind of sense make and see what emerges. How we engage with an environment, we have to be mindful that sometimes people will be in different spaces, but at the same time, like here, they will be in the same space in the same time. So that's asynchronous, and then there's different time, different space, and different time, same space. Sorry, and that's having an actual share space. So what I am really interested to learn is, especially where we work in the world of prototyping, rapid experimentation, how do we synthesize this information across to get to an outcome to push the organization forward? I'm interested to see how organizations adapt to that, because realistically it shouldn't be binary, right? We're remote, we are in person, and no one's figured out hybrid. And I love the fact nobody's figured out hybrid, because they shouldn't. It should be liquid. And I'm interested to see, now that people are settled into this world of wearing pajamas and Ugg boots at home instead of going into the office, how they come back and how they continue to present and show up in these different spaces without compromising the integrity of the conversation and the outcomes they're driving towards. And I think that's the big unknown at the moment. That's the space we're in right now.
So you think people are coming back? Do you think there's going to be a shift back? Because we've gotten into these habits of the pajamas wearing and just, my commute is now from my bed to the kitchen to the couch. Does that continue?
Yeah. But it's like watching a children's show. They've always got like a dog next to them. You know how the children's show, they always have a puppet or something. There's always a dog or a cat. So what I'm seeing is I'm seeing. So for example, we're running a workshop program at the moment, and what has been realized by the client is how important remote has become for them as a supporting mechanism to continue the flow of the conversation and refine it in preparation for the next. For example, we create a vision statement and bring it into the next session to build a strategy. Now, in that short space of time, building that vision statement and then coming back to it in a week or a few days later, everybody's going to throw rocks at it. What were we thinking? That makes no sense. But during that kind of energy in the room where everyone's like, yeah, let's make green sweets or something like that. That's like what they want to aim for. But using that, incorporating other touch points into that overall program allows them to reflect and start to sense make and refine to bring it back in again. And as a practitioner, what they might not realize in it, but we're quite deliberate in the way we plan out an engagement. They're running through different modes. They think, oh, we're remote, we're hybrid. They're not. And so it is happening that sometimes people aren't thinking of how they're doing it. And the other thing, because they're so, like, everyone's moving so fast, they're not capturing it and creating it and putting it into a process. So there's no default. So there's no consistency. So we're trying to help them put in that consistency.
They have a good experience. They see it works. You would think that would be enough. We're going to change. I promise. No, I'm going to change for real this time. But then they go back. What are some of the things that are keeping organizations from getting out of this middling area? Like you said, they're just doing it. They're not really paying attention. They're not systemizing everything. We have examples of at least good workshops, good meetings. There may be some best practices out there. What's the struggle with getting through this liminal phase?
Gosh, this is such a really interesting, like, this is a big topic, Dave. I mean, like, you're opening up a bit, because I had this conversation last night. I can see you back smiling. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, Alison Coward, and we were talking about this. Do you know Alison out of bracket? I'm going to name check. She's incredible. And we were talking about this, like, you step out the room, and as you know, as soon as you step out the room, the vortex goes, the experience is gone. You watch a great movie and you're just like, this is brilliant. Oh my God, I've learned so much. Or watch a great doco, and then as soon as it's gone, business as usual. It's like, how do you make sustainable change within the organization, especially when the culture isn't set up for it? And I think that's a bit of both. As a consultant, we need to ensure how we present ourselves and the options and the way we go to market and the dialogue we have with that client and organization enforces sustainable change. So there is a phase 2, phase 3, and there's always yes and also from the organization, they have to realize it's a journey. Like, it isn't something that they can change overnight. It's something they need to scale, and it's something they need to commit to. And often it's that tension between this is fun and new and shiny, and this can make a real difference, but we're not sure how to incorporate it. We've seen it, but we need help. And that's could be an ego thing as well. It could, like, there's lots of, we tried lots of things. We're exhausted. It's a lot of work. But the first thing it does, it starts with permission for them to say, like, this is something that will make a difference.
So a year from now, if we're having another conversation, another interview, if
please God,
in our experiment has gone really well, and from your point of view, what does good look like? What would we be talking about and patting each other on the back for next year, because this has gone so well?
Well, first up, I don't believe in failure, especially when it comes to experiments like this. Okay. The fact that we are bringing a fresh perspective and we're creating tension in this conversation is important, because like the evidence that was presented previously, it builds on organizations' frames of reference already. So it doesn't help. There is so much evidence out there, and like, we're living, breathing evidence. This is how we exist. This is how we put food on the table. This is how we have conversations. This is what we're doing every day. This is what we're seeing. It's almost remiss of us not to present an alternative perspective and provide this is an evidence base to say, look, that's really interesting. However, it's a lot more complicated than that. And we believe that this is an opportunity that your organization need to consider, need to start baking into the way you connect, collaborate, ideate, communicate. So a year from now, I would hope that we're not even talking the big hairy goal. People wouldn't be talking about remote or in person. It would just be work. It wouldn't be where it shouldn't be a distraction. It shouldn't be a challenge or a constraint.
It's such an interesting idea, though, that idea you posed, Dan, that remote, in the office, hybrid are just options, like what we're going to put on the brunch menu. It's not hugely germane. It's just we're going to pick based on the context of what we're doing, based on our purpose, based on who we need to connect with and what's going on. They are all great, viable options, and we know how to adapt to them. What a great version of what might be possible.
You think about the anatomy of the conversation. Like, sometimes we need to make decisions. Sometimes we need to gather evidence. Sometimes we need to collaborate. Sometimes we need to build. And depending on what we're going to build and depending on what we're going to decide on, you don't need to be in the same place. Like, different modes and different contexts or environments suit different ways. And people will always default to what they know. So we need, as a group, and as a whole part of this initiative, is to expand their worlds, because that's what we do as consultants, especially when we're presenting the future in conversation. We have organizations, what does 10 years from now look like in our industry? There are methods, there are tools, there are frameworks, there is information everywhere. If you stop and listen, there's signals in whether it's social, technological, environmental, economic, political, whatever it is, there's these signals out there that enable us to present a future and to build that future and figure out how we fit in it. And this is another signal.
What's the most important job skill for the next 5 years, Dan?
If I was talking to my little one, I'd say Lego building, because that's all he wants to do. So Lego building. I wouldn't like to say bias towards facilitation, because that's what I'm trying to selling to people, not my facilitation, but actually to build that discipline. But then that discipline is a subset of leadership. And this is another conversation that I've been having in regards to who are and what are leaders, or what level of leadership. And that is even at entry level.
I think a lot of people, when they run into the word facilitator, they think this is somebody who comes in and does the workshop that gives me a day away from my real work. How do you define facilitation when you talk about that being one of the skills for the future?
There are different types of creative people. There's innovators and there's adapters. And the innovators are the people that love new ideas, love coming up with big thinking. And then there's adapters. They don't like big ideas. They just like to change and adapt and incorporate. And the role of facilitation, just like leadership, is listening, is bridging and bringing people together. And then, like, the tool of the workshop's a tool, it's a platform. The facilitator is the negotiator. They're the listener. They're the people that encourage. So they've got to have such a high level of EQ, I believe, to be able to read the energy, the flow, and encourage people to be on the journey, to agree, to align, to show up. And it's not just as simple as plug and play. Being able to take somebody and change a meeting where people turn up and after 60 minutes, they're like, well, I don't know why I was there. We didn't actually achieve anything. We haven't moved anything more forward. All we've done, a result of this meeting, is more meetings. It's like they've chopped, the Fantasia with the broomsticks, where they just keep chopping them in bits, and they're like, how do we stop this? Just stop going to meetings, and then there's no more broomsticks. the meeting should lead, and that's a skill, and that comes back to the whole idea of actually taking account and processing and systemizing and actually being really mindful and deliberate in the way you go around and interact and building those frameworks, because they give you the freedom.
It seems like leadership is changing as well, which is why facilitation is becoming associated more with leadership.
Yeah, well, because especially with remote, I mean, leadership and facilitation, you as a leader now, you have to be able to bring people on. I mean, they now, most people are just, well, most people, that's a sweeping generalization, but the way they engage with work is they turn on the TV and they have where's the connection? Where's the culture? How do they believe in the mission when everything's like bits and atoms, like they just don't want to work for you anymore, so they'll go somewhere else.
Dan, if people wanted to learn more about More Space for Light, what you do, design thinking, workshops, where can they go?
They can go to our website at morespaceforlight.com.au. They can find us on LinkedIn and connect with me, Dan Levy, at LinkedIn. I'm always posting, putting up articles. That's where I'm most dangerous.
All right. I see you there all the time. Thank you for agreeing to this and sharing your thoughts. Thank you for being an advisor and shaping this project.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you for connecting. It's been such a delight to get to know you and connect with your community. So thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. To learn about the new rules for work, purchase tickets, or submit your team for an experiment, check out newrulesforwork.com. If you're interested in partnering, reach out to us at info@newrulesforwork.com.